Correct. Good evening. Hope you're all doing well. Today we are learning Maseches Bava Basra, Daf Kufyat Tes, and we're starting about 10 lines from the bottom of Kufyat Ches on the base. We're still in the midst of the sugya that's discussing how we measured the apportioning of the land of Eretz Yisrael. Do we measure based on the people who were Yotze Mitzrayim, or do we measure instead based on the people who are Nichnas to Eretz Yisrael? We're still not sure. So the Gemara says about 10 lines from the bottom on Kufyat Chasim and base as follows. I could understand, according to the Shita, as we saw yesterday and the day before in the name of Rav Yoshia, that we apportioned the land of Eretz Yisrael based on those who were Yotzei Mitzrayim. Hainu Dechsiv, that's how the Parsha in Chumash said this. It's actually not Chumash, it's actually Sefer Yoshua. That there were 10 bundles, 10 portions that were given over to Menashe. Shisa, the Shisa Batei Avos. There were 6 primary male leaders in that shevet. The Arba Didhu, and 4 of them that actually were for the Benos Tzlavchad, because in Tzlavchad's family they had no men, as we have learned many a time. And Ha'asara. That makes perfect sense. Now, the only way we get to 10, though, is because we're measuring from the Yotzei Mitzrayim. Had it been that we were measuring from Yotzei, from the Nichnasei Eretz Yisrael, we wouldn't have gotten to that number. So the last of the short lines says, according to those who say that we're measuring the land of Eretz Yisrael based on whoever enters Eretz Yisrael, Tmanya Hudahavu. Shisa the Shisa Batei Avos, 6 of them would have been from the Batei Avos. But Utreidid who only 2 would have then been received by the Benos Tzlavchad, because Tzlavchad himself was a Yotzei Mitzrayim, but not a Nichnas to Eretz Yisrael. So the only way the pasuk in Yoshua makes sense when it says that Yoshua got 10 portions of land is under the circumstances that we measure based on Yotzei Mitzrayim and not Nichnas to Eretz Yisrael. It says the Gemara that if we said Shisa Batei Avos traded who, that's Hatmanya, that's only 8, the Haraya, that it must be like we said yesterday, that it's like Rav Yoshia. So to this the Gemara responds, hold on one second, your whole math equation was off. We just said in the Gemara over here that the way that the pasuk in Sefer Yoshua got to 10 units of land for the shevet of Menashe, for the shevet of Menashe, is 6 Batei Avos plus 4 for the Benos Tzlavchad. But that's mamish against our Mishnah. Our Mishnah told us that there were 3 portions of land for the Benos Tzlavchad. 1 from Tzlavchad himself, and 2 from the Yerusha from Chefer, right? And Tzlavchad was a Bechor, so Pishnaim plus Tzlavchad's portion is 3. Your first number was wrong. So the Gemara says, no. We're able to get to 10 under both circumstances, and that's why there is no problem with either shita. And we're 5-6 lines from the bottom of Kufyat Testament.
Tzlofchad had how many brothers?
What?
Sefer is the father of Tzlofchad, right?
Correct.
So how many brothers did Tzlofchad?
Big machlokas here. 1, 2, or 8. We don't know.
It's hard to figure out that.
Well, the Rashbam holds that there were 8. But we're not even going to get to that level of nuance here. How then did we ever get to 10, even according to the sheet of Yotzei Eretz Yisrael? It must be that that there was an extra brother of Tzlavchad, and when that brother died in the Midbar, his portion went back up to Chefer and was redistributed back down to Tzlavchad, and therefore to the girls, therefore to the ladies. And that's how they got to 10. And if that's true by the Yotzei Mitzrayim, then Hachanami here too in regards to the Shita of Boy Eretz Yisrael, that we apportion the land of Eretz Yisrael based on those who entered Eretz Yisrael, even though it's true the girls wouldn't have, the Benos Tzlavchad would never have received portions based on Tzlavchad because he wasn't a Nichnas Eretz Yisrael. He was only a Yotzei Mitzrayim. Hachanami trei ache da'aba havalu. Maybe there were extra brothers, the Tanya, because we have a brisa that speaks about this. This is a pasuk in Sefer Bamidbar. The pasuk in full reads, "Kain benos tzlocha dovros, lason titen lehem achuzas nachla besocha che'avim, vartem es nachalas avim lahem." This was HaKadosh Baruch Hu's response to Moshe. Moshe got the concern, got the complaint from the Bnei Slavcha. We'll see at the end of the day today that they were very strategic in their timing of when they asked. Sometimes when you ask a question at the right time, you increase your chances of the answer being what you want. This is something that I teach my children and fail miserably in teaching my children, but it's a beautiful idea. Time yourself well, you're much better off. We'll see what their timing was soon. So what does this brisa say? The Tanya, 5 lines from the bottom. Nason titain lahem zu nachlas havin b'soch acheavi. This is talking about inheriting their father, b'soch acheavin, among the brothers of their brothers. Zu nachlas havin, the nachla of their father's father. What does the pasuk mean? Va'avarta es nachlas avihem lahen zu chelik habechora. So therefore, we can see from this first shita that we inherit even from the brothers of the father, and then either way. That's why this is no longer a kasha. Either way, we can get to the number of 10, either because the Yotzei Mitzrayim, we included one of the brothers, or because of the Nichnasei Eretz Yisrael, we included more than one of the brothers. And that's how the Rashbam here explains Be'arichus, that we're talking about many more brothers that lived and died in the Midbar, and Ayin Sham for more details. Rebbe Elazar ben Yaakov Omer, Av Chelek Achiavim Natlu, even the father's brothers' portions they took, Shneimar Nason Titain. All of this is under the assumption that there was, at least according to the Tanakama, one brother. According to those who say that there was Tzlavchad plus 2 others, so then we can figure out all of the math for those brothers and what the sisters would get from the pasuk of Me'achuzas Nachla. It would still end up being 10. In other words, there's no way that we have any kashas left because of the fact that we're factoring in the brothers. We're able to make an ukimta one way or the other, that we cannot bring a raya that we know if we measure from Yotzei Mitzrayim or Nichnasei Eretz Yisrael. And the next question goes back a little bit in time to what we just learned a little earlier. How did you get to 10? Itfalim, if you're including children, Itfalim kachashiv, then tuvahabu, then it shouldn't have been 10 portions, it should have been a lot more. Ibate avos kachashiv, then it's only shisa havu. What was this whole addition of the benos Tzlavchad? It says the Gemara, turning to the top of Kufiyat Testament, Olam, really, bate avos kachashiv. Really, you're right. It's just bate avos. But velkamash malan de benos Tzlavchad, not tluche like bechora. It taught us a shtickle chiddush, and we're going to ask why this is a chiddush later. But it taught us a shtickle chiddush that the benos Tzlavchad took the chelek of the bechora. So listen to this: when the benos Tzlavchad were in Eretz Yisrael, they got the bechora from a man who had died a long time ago, right? So the Gemara says, Alma, what we see from here is that Eretz Yisrael is muchzekesi. We learned about this concept the other day of ra'oi ki b'muchzak. Do we say that the inheritors, the yorshim, are able to get that which is only in the bank account for a Yerusha? So Tzlavcha died on, I'm making this up, I don't know what year he died, on the 30th year of being in the Midbar, and whatever he had in the bank, that's what the girls got. Or do we say, no, we even say it's ra'oi ki b'muchzak, whatever he would have gotten had he lived that long, which he didn't, that would have also gone. So the Gemara says we treat it as muchzekes, that whatever he could have gotten is considered muchzekes. Amar Mara Kufiyat Testament Aleph, 3 lines down, we'll be going toward the bottom of Kufiyat Testament Beis. Amar Mar be'abanim natlu b'schus avi avin u'b'schus avi imosehen. Here we were discussing machlokes from based on what we saw yesterday, the mislonanim and the adas korach, that we said that they do not have a chelek in Eretz Yisrael, but their children do. So yesterday we said that their children do, but by skipping a generation, going back up to a fatherly figure, a grandfatherly figure, either the father's father or the mother's father, but they weren't left out in the cold. They all had something. The problem is, we have a brisa that goes against our Mishnah that indicates that it was really bischus atzman, that they really deserved it on their own. This is difficult, because which one is it? Do we say that the reason these people got a property, these children of the Adas Korach got a property when their parents got nothing, is because of their grandparents, or was it in their own schus? Lokasha, ha-keman da'amar liyotze Mitzrayim, ha-keman da'amar levay ha'aretz. One of these brisas is going according to the opinion of Yotze Mitzrayim. And because it's based on Yotzei Mitzrayim, their entering into Eretz Yisrael earned them nothing. The only way they could have gotten something is if it's based on the previous generation who were Yotzei Mitzrayim. These are the parents of Korach and the parents of Adas Korach. However, the other Shita says, the Brisa that says that it was B'schus Atzman says that they really hold the Vay Haaretz. The reason they got the property isn't B'schus Avos. Their fathers deserved nothing. They deserved nothing for multiple reasons. One, because they were Adas Korach, and two, because they were not Nichnasei Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, according to this Shita that says that the Brisa is saying the Vay Haaretz, that's why it says B'schus Atzman. When they walked in, they get a piece of property. That's Kilu. They cross the river. They see Yoshua. Yoshua says, "What's your name?" He says, "I'm Korach's son." He says, "I know they're bad people, but you are a Nichnas Eretz Yisrael. You get lot number 1437, whatever the details are." Another possible answer as to how we answer up the stira that, according to some, the children of Korach either was b'schus their grandparents or b'schus Atzman. So there's another possible answer. Really, according to this, everyone was talking about those who entered Eretz Yisrael. V'lo kasha, ha'dahavu ben Esrim, ha'delo hava ben Esrim. According to the Psukim and Chumash, if a person was 20 or older, that was b'schus Atzman, then he'd get his own property. If he was less than 20s and he didn't have a father because his father was Korach, his father was a Rasha Marusha, he's gone. So then they got it b'schus the grandparents. One way or the other, we answer.
Well, the father was not Korach with the Adasai, but they died in the midbar, so that you can have a child under 20, correct?
Child under 20, but he'd have to only get a b'schus the grandfather, not b'schus the father.
Why? The father died in the midbar.
What?
If the father died in the midbar, nothing to do with Korach or the Adasai. But the father died because one of the people that died in the midbar, so you should get it from the source of the father. You don't have to go back to the grandfather.
No, the second answer doesn't care about that. The second answer says you're by haaretz. No, the second answer does care about that. And hadalo haba ben esrim. Hadalo haba ben esrim means that if you're not 20, then it has to be b'schus somebody in your family. Then it would be b'schus your father. By Korach, it's b'schus a grandfather because he was a Rasha. So one way or the other would be based on an ancestor. So that the two dots, a third of the way down on Kufiyat Tesmalal, the Gemara says, "V'shahaya bechor notel shnei chalakim." We said that the Benos Tzalafchad got 3 portions of Eretz Yisrael. One of them was because of Tzalafchad's portion in Eretz Yisrael, and 2 portions were based on a Yerusha after Tzalafchad died because he was a bechor and he gets Pishnayim. So Pishnayim plus 1 is 3. Ve'amai, the Gemara says, I don't understand. Why would we say that there's no tel Pishnayim? Ra'uihu ve'ein habechor no tel b'roike b'muchzak. It shouldn't work out this way that the Benos Tzalafchad get this. We actually already answered this, and the Rishonim point out that the maksha, the person asking this question, the Gemara wasn't written in perfect sequence. It's been kind of piecemealed over the years, mostly solidified by the times of the Rishonim, by the early Rishonim, even by the Gaonim for the most part. Because the last portions of the Gemara were written by the Savoraim in like the 800s. By the time the Gaonim came around, things were really pretty much in a somewhat of the order in which we see it, not in this format. This format is from the 1400s, when it first really hit the printing press. And then it included Rashi, because Rashi predated that printing press by about 250, 300 years, the Balei Atosos by about 150, 200 years. But already by the times of the Gaonim, our Gemara was pretty much as the Gemara material, not the Rishonim, was pretty much what it looks like now. Of course, Rashi and the Balei Atosos weren't alive in the times of the Gaonim. So the person who asked this question didn't see the previous Gemara, which spoke about Eretz Yisrael being muchzak. So says the Gemara, why should the Benos Tzalafchad get Pishnayim Hare Eretz Yisrael? It's Roi Kibbeh Muchzak, and you shouldn't be getting Roi Kibbeh Muchzak. It says the Gemara, don't worry. When we said that the Benos Tzalafchad got their portion of Pishnayim or whatever they got, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, B'Yasedos Olim. That was from the pegs that held the tents down. This is basically the equivalent of saying something that everybody has, because they all lived in tents, so everybody had pegs for tents. In other words, as the Meforshim explained, it's metaltalin. It wasn't talking about land in Eretz Yisrael that they got as a Yerusha or the Pishnayim. They got their Pishnayim in metaltalin, whatever they could get their hands on it that belonged to their father. The father had I don't know, 100 trinkets to give out. So she got pishnayim. She got pishnayim. It was divisible by however many brothers there were. Says the Gemara, that's not true. It wasn't about metaltalin. It was actually about Eretz Yisrael. Masiv Rabbah, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Benos Slavcha Natlu Dalad Chalakim. The Benos Slavcha Taka did take 4 portions of the land. Shene'emar, Vayiplu Cheblem and Hashasar, like we saw at the beginning of the day. The Taka did take Eretz Yisrael. Don't tell me that that they didn't take land. They took land. The pasuk in Yoshua says that they took land. We know exactly what happened. Stop giving me these excuses of the Seidos of Olim, that they took the pegs, the tents. No, they didn't. They actually took karka. So then the Gemara circles back to the answer that we saw at the top of this page. But again, it was out of sequence. So the Maksha of our Gemara right here didn't know this. Ela Amar Rabba, Eretz Yisrael Muchzek. See, it's different. Eretz Yisrael Rawi is Kibbeh Muchzak. Unlike other cases where you can only get what's in the bank, when it comes to Eretz Yisrael, we foreshadow what could come in the form of Yerusha from a parent, and we give Pishnayim. Says the Gemara, a lengthy question. I don't understand what's going on here. Meisvei, Amar V'chidka, Shimon HaShikmoni, Hayali Chaver mitalmidei Rabbi Akiva. He was a friend of mine who was also a Talmud of Rabbi Akiva. He used to say, you don't think he learned this din? He knew every halacha under the sun. He didn't know the din that the Benos Slavchad get. The pecking, we have a Mishnah. It's a pecking order of Nachala that if there are no boys, the girls get. Is it possible? No, of course he knew. No, the only thing he didn't know wasn't about the pecking order. He knew that if there were no boys, then the girls get. He just didn't know about the Bechora piece, how that would work out. And it would have even been appropriate for this parsha of the Torah to only be Moshe talking without even mentioning the Benos Tzlavchad. Would have been appropriate. Ella shezachu Benos Tzlavchad v'nichtav al yadam. They earned it. They earned their keep by piping up and by saying what they felt was right, and they were taka right in the end. Moshe knew the din that they were next in order when there were no sons. The only thing Moshe didn't know was that one aspect of whether or not there was a bechora for the Benos Tzlavchad. And similarly, the Yodea HaMoshe Rabbeinu shehamakoshesh b'misa, he knew that in Parshas Shlach, that when this guy goes out on like the second Shabbos ever and he's Makoshesh Eitzim, and of course we all also know that this was in front of Edom, who gave him Hasira. I mean, Rosh Merusha, this guy just saw the Kolos Uvrakim. It's so hard to fathom that a person could do an Avera that soon after Har Sinai. It takes time for the Kedusha to dissipate. But this guy apparently had a hole in his kli because he was Mekoshesh Eitzim. You don't think Moshe Rabbeinu knew the punishment? It's a pasuk, an open pasuk in Chumash. What the punishment is? Yochai Misa. Shenemar Mechal Aleha Mos Yumat. Pashat that he knew. So Aval Lo Haya Yodeh Be'ezo Misa Hu Yamos. Is it Skilas Refa Hereg V'Chenek? We didn't know. Moshe didn't know, which by the way is unbelievable that Moshe didn't know. Which also brings to a broader discussion of what else did Moshe not know from Har Sinai. He didn't know that there was Bechora by Tzlavchad. He didn't know that the punishment by Shabbos is Skila. He had no idea.
He knows that tefillin are black.
But he knows that tefillin are black. He knows that in Makoshesh Eitzim is Chayiv Misa. So it's a difficulty. And this is a big, big discussion in the Rishonim because the Rambam, and there's a big machlokas, Rishonim Rambam and the Ramban, about what was actually given over at Har Sinai.
He did not know. There's some kind of play like I don't know if this applies. He's trying to avoid this penalty. Would you say that?
Doesn't seem that way. This Brisa seems pretty explicit that he just Pasha didn't know.
He just says, no, it wasn't that. No, he knew that.
No, he was Chayiv Misa.
That's what he knew Chayiv Misa doesn't mean you can provide the funds.
No, the Rashbam on the bottom page says, Kilo poresh ma ya'aselo hainu shelo haya yodeh im beskila chamura im bechena kakao kedim mefarish v'azim. He mamish didn't know. I just find that amazing. How do we know what he knew and what he didn't know?
All the things, unless there's a lesson to teach us from him not knowing everything.
Even something as great as
I'm concerned about the theological components of this, that we said that when we see the word Toros, for example, we see the plural of Torahs, we say there's Torah Shebechsav and Torah Shebal Peh. Okay, we know. I'm saying
It doesn't seem like that. For all the complicated things.
to not know that Skila is the punishment for Shabbos is weird. Now, obviously, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he decided b'chachmaso not to share it with him. I'm sure. I'm not doubting that there's a reason. I'm just pointing out that it's theologically difficult when you say that the Torah was given, the Torah Shebal Peh and Torah Shebechsav were given in concert. The reason we know that tefillin were black is because they were given in concert. If you would have left a molecule of oxygen, you would have had brown, black, pink, yellow. We would have had tefillin of all colors. We would have had women wearing women. There's no space.
The notes in the article says he didn't know how. I didn't know. The notes in the article, he didn't know how he should be put to that. Right. By stoning or strangulation.
That's what we're talking about.
It doesn't mean well. But that means
He knew it was capital punishment.
that's a pasuk. So
That's a pasuk.
right.
He just didn't know how to execute the capital punishment.
It doesn't make sense. Why would he know?
Because
Just think of everything else
because
that
according to many Rishonim, the Torah Shebal Peh was given over at Har Sinai.
I think everybody. Is there anybody?
Well, clearly not everything was taught.
There's a good Tosfos here. It was like there's reasons for both Chenek and for Skila. So he was Masupik, which one is it? Is it was it Shabbos Doma
You're
Lavozara?
right. It's not even an answer.
Should it be Stam like Chenek?
It doesn't help.
I understand why a person like Moshe who didn't know would come up with his own svaras, lakanu lakan. I understand that. I'm not asking that question. I'm asking a different question. If we have a theological assertion that the Torah Shebal Peh accompanied the Torah Shebechsav, why didn't he know that Skila was the form of capital? I'm sure, no doubt. I'm not asking to be an apikores. I'm asking because I don't know.
What the shaka looked like. He didn't know how to make the menorah. Kiddush Levana. Those are big. But this doesn't seem.
Right.
This is one detail.
Does giving over Torah Shebal Peh mean that all the final sock of the issue was all given over?
So what you're really asking is, what is the scope of Torah Shebal Peh? That's really what you're asking.
I think so. Many things were then forgotten. No such thing as a machloket.
Because the way we learn it.
Hillel and Shammai by Smicha.
Is all.
Well, what we're learning is so refined. I mean, relative to we're unrefined, but this is so refined. Like we're
Just on the shoulders.
yeah, I'm saying it's not like we are the ones who established what's going on over here, but everybody in the room knows that the punishments of Skila. Okay, we don't have time for this, but it's
There's gotta be.
100%. I have no doubt. I have no doubt. Okay, Veru'i Haisa, Parshas Mikoshe Shetzikasev al Yedei Moshe. It would have actually been appropriate that the Parshas Mikoshe could have been written without referencing the fact that someone violated halacha. Moshe just could have taught. By the way, Mechalaleh Mosumas, Kadosh Baruch Hu then teaches him it's Skila. Okay, it's Skila, but we could have had that. Ella, Shenischayv Mikoshe, the fact that the Mikoshe actually did the Maisa earned him an unfortunate place in history. V'nichtav al yado. What do these two stories teach us? One positive and one negative. The first story was the positive, that the Benos Tzalafchad brought about a certain reality, and therefore the Torah was including them. And the Mekoshesh Eitzim was included in the negative. Says the Gemara on the top of Kufyud Tes Amud Beis, Shemegalgalin Schus al Yedei Zakai, Bechova al Yedei Chayav. A Gemara we saw 3 years ago, approximately, maybe a little bit more, which is that we are Megalgalin Schus al Yedei Zakai. So there's a schus, something happened. We had a refinement in halacha, and therefore the Benos Tzalafchad earned their psukim and chumash. And Bechova al Yedei Chayav, the Mekoshesh Eitzim, was quoted as the Mekoshesh Eitzim, not by name, but he was still referenced in chumash because he was Chayav. Now here's the Gemara's question: the Isal Kadaita Eretz Yisrael Muchzekes. If what you're trying to say is that Eretz Yisrael is Muchzekes, that we do say Ra'oi ki b'muchzak, then I don't understand. My komistapkole. Why would Moshe have been confused about that? So the Gemara responds, no different than our confusion about the last two things he didn't know about. He didn't know. When the pasuk says, "V'nasati osalachem morasha ani Hashem," when the Jews were in the Midbar and they were told that they were going to get Eretz Yisrael, Moshe didn't know what the word Yerusha meant. Do we say Yerusha hilachem me'avosechem, that Slavchad actually owned a portion of the land, and therefore it's not roi kiba muchzak, it's muchzak, that's what he had. O dilma shem morishin ve'ein yorshin, that Slavchad would bequeath to, in this case, the benos Slavchad, but he himself was not a yoresh, in which case it's roi kiba muchzak. We don't know the answer to that. Upashtu lei, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself b'chvod v'atzmo answered, Tar vayu, it was really both. It was really Yerusha lachem me'avosechem umarishin ve'ein yorshin. That really it was both. And where do we see this from? From Oz Yashir. V'hainu dichsiv tivi'emo v'sito'emo b'har nachal asacha. Tivi'emo, they foreshadowed a nevuah. Kind of reminds me of nishtachaveh v'nashuva by Akedas Yitzchak. Here, what did it say? Tivi'emo, it will be brought, or he will be brought. He will be planted in Eretz Yisrael. It didn't say to be a new lo ne'emar. It didn't say it'll bring us. Ela to be emo melame shemisnaben ve'enon yodin mamisnaben. They had a nevuah. They didn't even know. So what do we see over here? What we see is that they had a Yerusha, but they also really didn't own it. It kind of went through them, but they were never bailim. They were able to bequeath, but they were never yoresh, which is a funny quagmire of a situation. But that's what the Gemara says in order to avoid the question of roi kibbeh muchzak. Almost as an aside, the Gemara says about Ta'amod la lifnei Moshe. Look at the order in the pasuk. They went to go ask this question before Moshe. V'lifnei Elazar haKohen, v'lifnei Hanasim v'chol ha'eda. So if you look in Bamidbar Kav Zayin, the pasuk says that they asked this question outside of the Ohel Moed. So says the Gemara. Hold on one second. Efshar amdu lifnei Moshe first, v'lo amru lahen davar, and then v'amdu lifnei Hanasim v'chol ha'eda. Pasuk is out of order. Usually you climb up the ladder, you don't climb down the ladder. So it's a problem. Yeah, if somebody asks me a question and I often don't know, I'll be like, I don't know, let me go call Rabbi Robinson. If Rabbi Robinson doesn't know, you keep going up the ladder. If the pasuk says you start with Chumash and they didn't know, and then they went to the Nesiah, that's backwards. It says the Gemara, L'sires HaMikra. The pasuk needs to be cut up and reorganized. V'dar shehu. That's how it should be learned. The drasha should be that they didn't go to Moshe first. They did write his name first in Chumash, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu wrote Moshe's name first, but that wasn't actually the order. And Abba Chanan Amar, Mishum Rabbi Eliezer, the Beis HaMedrash Hayu Yoshvin, they were all sitting in the Beis Medrash. Halchu v'amdu lahen lifnei kulan. That really the Shaila was asked in front of everybody. And b'may kamiflagay, Mar Savar Cholkin Kavod L'Talmid b'Makom Harav, that one is allowed to give kavod. Namely, we can talk in learning to a Talmud in front of a Rav. We know that we're not posek halacha lifnei Rabu, but according to this shita, that if you are mechalek kavod l'Talmud b'makom Rav, that means they were talking and learning, and Moshe was the final psak. Umar sabar ein chalken, and according to some, ein chalken, that's really not the right way to learn it, and that could be the machlokas between Rav Yoshaya and Rav Chanan. According to Rav Chanan, they were all able to sit together. According to Rabbi Yoshai, they were not able to sit together and talk in Talmud in front of a Rebbe, and therefore he had to come up with a more extreme answer of Sirei Samikra. And what's the halacha? Then, well, we have two hilchasas, v'hilchasa cholkin, v'hilchasa ein cholkin. So we see, obviously, the psakim are not clear. Ay kasha hilchasa, ahilchasa. Which one is correct? The Gemara says, hilchasa lo kasha. The paligle rabbe yikara. One is where the Rebbe gives kavod himself to the Talmud. He shows, so in that case, the Rebbe is giving a green light to give kavod to the Talmud. And the lo paligle rabbe yikara. So when this is hilchasa cholkin and hilchasa ein cholkin. When do we say ein cholkin? That's when the Rebbe doesn't give the kavod to the younger child. Let's say that I'm the Talmud and Rabbi Robinson says to me, Phil, I'd love to hear you. Okay, so he's giving me some rope. So then everyone can talk and learning. But if Rabbi Robinson starts talking and saying on his own accord that he wants to give an answer, that's ein cholken. That if it's ein cholken, then don't come talk to me about it. And that's not appropriate. Lastly, for tonight, Tana, beautiful brisa. Last of the short lines now. Benos lavchad chachmanios hein, darshanios hein, and tzidkanios hein. They were very wise. They knew how to give a drasha, and they were tzadkanios. Chachmanios hein shelafi sha'a dibro. When did they ask their question? Not the second it hit their brains. They were smart. The women sat down. They said, "This I have a kasha. Well, there are no men in the family. Everybody else is getting a Yerusha. We should have a piece of land." But then they said, "When should we ask?" And they came up with the following idea. To Amar Reb Shmuel bar Rabbi Yitzchak. Moshe Rabbeinu Yoshe v'Dorish b'Parshas Yevamin. Moshe is giving a drasha. They put up one of those pashkavilin that says the shiur this week is in Maseches Yevamos. Ladies say, perfect. This is when we're going to ask our question. Shneimar ki yeshvu achim yachtav. Amrulo, they said to Moshe, what a gorgeous chachma timing of the question. Im kiven anu chashuvin. If we're similar to a boy as it relates to Yevamos, to Yibum, namely, if there's a boy, or if there's a girl, then Yibum doesn't take place. So then, Tanalanu Nachla Kiven. If boys and girls are equal in order to stop a Yibum, they should be equal in regards to stopping a Nachala. And Imlav, if not, then if the only child that they have is a girl, let our mother get married. Either you're saying boys and girls are equal like they are by Yibum, or they're not. If they're equal by Yibum, they should be equal by Nachla. If they're not equal by Yibum, then there should still then a woman should be able to have Yibum even if there's only a daughter. Yad immediately Vayikrav Moshe's mishpatan lifnei Hashem. So they timed their question very well. What about Darshani Osein? The fact that they could give a drasha. Shahu Omros ilu hayalo ben lo dibarnu. Had it been that my father Tzlafchad, our father Tzlafchad had a son, we wouldn't even be the ones talking. We get it. We understand that there's a pecking order. As we saw earlier, Seder Nachlos is Ben before Bas. Ben and all of his descendants, and then Bas. Hold on one second. V'hatanya Bas. Some say that it says Bas instead of Ben over here. Says the Gemara, two answers. Amar Rav Yirmiyah Samim Mikan Bas. Erase that brisa that says Bas. It's incorrect. Abaye says no. They're saying even better. Says the Gemara, Abaye Amar Afilu Haya Bas Leben Lodi Barnu. Even if there was a daughter to a son of Tzlafchad, I get it. The girls were not trying to say the world is unfair. They're not trying to say boys get more than girls. They said, if we had a brother, even if he died, but he had a child who was a daughter, we know she gets kadimus. We know. That's what the brisa meant when it said Bas. So they knew how to darshan. They knew how to learn. They knew what they were to. I call them I don't know. Go talk to your local Orthodox rabbis. Lastly, for tonight, Tzidkani Yosein. What does this mean that they were righteous? Shelo nisu elo lehagun lahen. They were only supposed to be able to marry the appropriate people, and they ended up marrying only within their mateh, only within their tribe, and that's why they were considered to be at tzaddikas. We'll stop right here. Emir Hashem will meet up again, not tomorrow, but on Thursday, on the first day of Yontif. I believe it's an earlier shiur at 4:00. Please check the announcements. Wishing you all a beautiful Hoshana Rabbah and a beautiful Yontif.